Sabo?
Here.
Mrs. Himline?
Here.
Mr. Cott?
Here.
Mr. King?
Here.
Our first item of business is to approve minutes from the last meeting, and I think everybody's received a copy of those. So if I can have a motion to approve those.
Make a motion to approve the February 10th minutes. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additions or corrections to the? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Mr. King?
Here. Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Cott?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mrs. Himline?
Yes. We have no old business, but we do have two items of new business this evening. The first one is a zone change request from RA Suburban Residential to R3 Residential for the property located at 4885 West Alexis Road. And Daryl, I'm going to let you address that one
Okay.
before we discuss.
The applicant is requesting a zone change from RA Suburban Residential to R3 Residential for the undeveloped parcel at 4885 Alexis Road. The subject parcel would be combined with the adjoining undeveloped parcel to the west, already zoned R3, in order to develop multifamily units on the site. The combined acreage of these two lots would be just over 1.2 acres and could accommodate 9 to 12 multifamily dwelling units as an R3 zoned property. The Sylvania Township Land Use Plan advocates suburban residential uses for this part of the township. Suburban residential encompasses A4, RA, R1, and R2 zone districts, i.e. single-family dwellings of 2 to 5 units per acre. The areas abutting the subject property to the north and to the west are recommended for general commercial uses by the Land Use Plan. Should this zone change request be approved, any proposed plans for a multifamily development would be required to be reviewed through the project plan review process. While the Land Use Plan does not recommend multifamily uses for this area, it is unlikely that single-family dwellings would ever be constructed along a main thoroughfare such as this segment of Alexis Road. Further, R3 zoning would be an adequate transitional buffer between the current single-family uses / zoning to the east and south and the commercial uses / zoning to the north and west, and should pose no adverse effect on nearby residential. Lastly, the adjoining parcel that would be combined with the subject parcel is already zoned R3 and could presently accommodate multifamily dwellings. For these reasons, the Sylvania Township Zoning Staff recommends approval of the requested zone change from RA to R3 for the property located at 4885 Alexis Road.
This was reviewed by the Lucas County Planning Commission?
Yes.
And they recommended?
They recommended approval.
Okay. So, and the parcel next door is already zoned R3. Now that he has any questions for Daryl before we give people the opportunity to comment?
Can you put that slide up that shows the overview again?
Shows which?
The overview of the property. Is there property in front of that one right there? Is there property in front of that going to Alexis Road?
No, that's the right-of-way. For some reason, this one,
Okay.
this
It
one
looks
right
odd
there
how that one sticks
it goes
out
all
like
the
that.
way out to the middle of Alexis, which is
Okay.
really strange. If you'll notice, then the next one over is in line with the subject property.
Okay.
So is that's excluded, the right-of-way is excluded from the 1.1 total acres then?
Yeah, it should be.
All right.
Any other questions for Daryl? If there are people who would like to, is the person who is requesting the zoning change present?
Yes, sir.
And you would like to, what we're going to do is we're going to give you a chance to speak to the issue first, and then if anybody else would like to speak to the issue, we're going to let you come up to the podium, but we'll let you go first. If you would, when anybody who comes to the podium, if you would give your name and your address, so we would have it for the record.
Fahad Abed, 6511 Cedar Ridge, Toledo, Ohio 43615.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, I can't add more or listen what Mr. Doyle he said. He described exactly what I want to do, and my vision is really to kind of improve that land, make it look much better than it is now. As a matter of fact, a couple of days ago, I just was there and I found somebody had backed up and dumped a bunch of sticks and leaves and branches in the site. And 2 weeks ago, there was a mattress in there, but it was hauled away by the old owner. Well, I can assure my neighbors that this property is going to look much better, and it's going to increase your value of your homes rather than bring it down, okay? And I will do whatever it takes in my power to make sure that will happen to you also. You know, I'm not just going to put something in there that does not look right or does not fit with the land or with the landscape or so forth, but, you know, it will look much better, 100% down better than it is now. Thank you.
Are there any questions? How many units are you planning on putting on the property? Or don't you know yet?
I was thinking maybe just putting 12 units in there if I can.
Single story?
And no, it will be like a story and a half, or maybe, yeah, a story and a half or 2 stories. We'll have an attached 2-car garage to them, with 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms each, and by the zoning commission, I can do that. Otherwise, I have to only put 8 units with a parking lot. Because, you know, if there's no parking lot, it looks like it, you know, if there's an attached garage, I don't need a parking lot. But if I can put an attached garage to a unit, I only could, you know, I could put more units in there. And there is...
It's obviously conceptual, but just gives us an idea of what you're thinking about.
I think they would be similar to the apartments that were built on McCord Road just south of Sylvania, and the ones that are going up on Central, the Carlisle Commons
Okay.
on Central, just west of Centennial.
Right.
But at this point, there's no site plan?
There is site plan just for the building envelope, but not for the building itself, no.
And how many units did you say?
12.
And Daryl, do you know, are the neighborhoods behind septic and leach, or there's sewer? Is it, in your notes, you said there's no sewer to this property?
That was at the Lucas County Plan Commission report. I know that we have people in the audience from the neighborhood behind. They certainly could answer that for you.
All right. I just didn't know, what are you going to do, you know, about sewer, obviously?
Well, it looks like to me that I have to extend the sewer that's coming from the street, across the street, which is, I think, countryside all the way to my property, if I want to do that. And that will also improve that side of the street, that there's 5 neighbors or 5 properties along that, you know, I have to extend the sewer 5 properties over to my property, and that will also give them a chance to hook up to the sewers. Because I can't build a septic tank for 12 minutes or nothing, you know?
So you don't have enough room.
Right.
Any other questions?
And, excuse me, and that would all be addressed through project plan review by the Lucas County engineer and the sanitary engineer's office.
All right.
Other questions?
I also would like to ask something, if you don't mind. You know, those units will be, as you see, 3 bedrooms or 2 bathrooms. They're not going to be a single person or a couple living there. It might be like a family with 1 kid or something. It's going to be a family-friendly environment that it's not going to be like partying or you know, drinking, or there's not going to be like a dumpster in the back or a parking lot where people could gather or anything. It's going to be a straight shot of a small drive, 6 units this way, 6 units this way, everybody back in their own garages and so forth. There is, like he said, there's a property just down the street on McCord, and there's also a couple of properties on Main Street here to your right, I think Island Cove or something.
So they're going to be rentals?
Yes.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. If there are other people in the audience who would like to comment on this issue, we're going to have you come to the podium. One at a time, please. You know, make your point, keep your comments brief, make sure you state your name and address. And the only, caution I would give you if there's more than one person is let's not all, we don't have to repeat the same comment over and over again just for everybody's best interest. But we'll listen to anybody who wants to address the zoning commission. So if you would like, anybody want to address the zoning commission on this particular issue?
My name is Deb Condon. I live at 4914 South Arvilla, which is one of the parcels directly behind the lot in question. I have a couple things that I would like to start with. First of all, the residents in this area have been through this process once before. Previously, when most of us bought our homes in that area, on the lot in question, there was a house, and it was a wooded lot. About 10 years ago, somebody bought the property, and before any zoning changes or anything were done, he tore down the house, tore out the septic tank, and cut all the trees down. For this reason alone, and then the deal fell through, so we were left with this vacant lot. The trash that Mr. Abed talked about, probably some of it came from the Toledo Edison when a tree branch went down and they came in and cut branches and cut trees and left all the trash and all the debris there. These are the reasons many of us are cautious about this and have questions that we would like answered. As noted in the general information paper that came from Sylvania Township, there are single-family dwellings to the north, to the south, and to the east. The property that is listed on a lot of these papers as a greenhouse is no longer a greenhouse. It hasn't been for many years. Right now it's an animal behavior facility, but there still is a residence on that property. At the Lucas County zoning meeting in March, which most of the residents in the area were given at best 2 days' notice, we never got a notice about the proposed zoning change. Limited information was given about the proposal. It was strongly suggested by Lucas County Board that Mr. Abed contact the neighbors and explain his plans. There has been no contact. After receiving a notice from Sylvania Township about this particular meeting, my husband and I came out, wanted to look at some plans. There were no plans. I called Mr. Abed, and he has been very cooperative, but he had no plans that he could show us, or no documents that he could show us. One of the neighbors did get an aerial photograph of the proposed project, and it is the condos on Main Street in Sylvania. No information was given also about, when we came in a couple weeks ago, about this sewer line. That's a big question. We all have septic tanks. Will this have an effect on us? He did say that there were to be the 12 units with the bedrooms, etc. He said that he would rent these from, I've heard figures from $1,200 a month to $1,800 a month. He would be responsible for lawn care and upkeep. This all sounds good, and if that's how it turns out, it's better than a limousine service. But what if he can't rent those for that amount of money? Is Section 8 apartments a possibility? That is a big concern. What happens in the future? In the past, maybe 6 months, there have been at least 3 burglaries or break-ins right in our adjacent area. That's a concern. If you have apartments. I guess my question, why not condos that are sold where the owners have an investment in the property and they have an investment in the neighborhood? It's not so much, granted, at this point, we don't know for sure what's going to go in there, but I think my concern is what else could be put in there? A high-rise apartment building? many, many tenants, whatever. We would like, I guess, what I would like is more information about what the plans are for this property.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to address the issue? Well, let's let the other people hear, and then you can respond after the neighbors.
My name's Amanda Bearwalt. I live at 4828 North Arvilla Drive. So I'm not directly behind, I'm very close to that property. And I have many of the same concerns that she has already shared. One of the comments that kind of threw me for a loop was he was concerned about leaves and branches and other natural things, which I don't really, I'm with the Student Conservation Association, and green spaces vary desirable in communities, and I don't think putting in an apartment building of any sort is going to add value to our homes, like he says, and definitely not more so than what it's currently zoned as. So I guess I'm worried, he's talking about sticks and trees and brush being trash. I guess I'm more concerned about what kind of trash is going to come just from having apartment buildings. You've got, that you have to get rid of the trash, and there's going to be a lot of trash from one very small area. So that's a concern, and my other concern, which she touched on briefly, is having to dig for the sewer. Anytime you dig next to septic fields, you risk destroying your septic field. And we've been in that situation, not at this property before. What's going to happen when they start digging and our septic fields go? We're liable. Not only that, all the cost, taxes. Our taxes start going up, and you have a lot of really unhappy citizens. And this is a place I want to stay and raise my 2 children, and it's not somewhere I would want to stay if an apartment complex went up. I don't see how having 2 bedrooms and a bath or 2 baths does anything to keep families. Anyone can come in and do a 2-bedroom. And the pricing, the $1,200 to $1,600, I don't see that happening in Sylvania. You can get single-family homes rented. We were renting before we purchased this property 2 years ago. And you could get a single-family home with a fenced-in yard, 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, full kitchen, everything, basement for $1,100. So I don't see how you're going to get the money that you are wanting to get for these apartments. I don't think it's practical. And then you've got these buildings up, you've got to get them in. Now what are we going to do? Are we going to go Section 8? Are we going to drop prices? Who's going to start coming in and affecting our homes and our living space? Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to address this particular issue with the Zoning Commission?
My name is Sharon Graver. I live at 5619 Woodridge. Lived there for a long time, about 30 years or so. And more recently, over the last 10 years or so, there's been some changes that have affected the neighborhood and the quiet area that we moved there for. Just west of where you propose this, or Mr. Albert opposes, is that we had a greenhouse, which Debbie or Mrs. Condon mentioned is no longer a greenhouse, and it is a bird or animal behavior center. There are animals that are being trained there. There are lights on that are on from the evening all night long. It causes a constant green glow to the back of several houses in the neighborhood. Just west of that, what was a quiet Buckeye awning business was recently sold to Frames Pest Control, and they're now using their back lot or field to park trucks and heavy equipment in. It causes some disruptions in the early morning and evenings with the equipment moving in and out. The other ladies have mentioned that part of our concern is that when you get a .65 parcel of land and put 12 units on it with 3 to 4 or more people in each unit, it does increase the density. And they've touched on some of the concerns that it makes our parcels of land, which are about the same size or close to that parcel of land, and we're single-family units,
have less green value, less rural or suburban value, and think it opens for a potential of down the road, if he doesn't successfully get the $1,500 to $1,800, which I think is high for that area, that it could go for less, and then the rental does not have an investment or a interest in the neighborhood. Condos might have more of an interest, invested interest, but that's not what is being proposed at this time. And again, I'd like to see some actual plans. Thank you.
Anybody else want to address this issue?
My name is Chapel Tenney. My husband Dale is with me. We both are not happy with the situation that's going on in our backyard.
Which street are you on?
5621 Woodridge. Directly behind us is the pest control that has the bright yellow and red trucks that park right in basically our backyard right now. It used to be just a beautiful suburban area. I really feel that it's going to affect our value of our home when we sell. We have the greenhouses what was the greenhouses in our side yard. We look directly at that. Because of this, I'm just concerned about any change, everything I've heard about this change. I don't want apartment buildings going up. I guess I agree with some of the other statements that the condos might not be as bad, but we don't have any definite answers on even what's going to happen, and I definitely do not want apartments. I don't think I want condos. I don't want any zoning change at this time. Thank you.
Is there anybody else?
Good evening. My name is David Ryan. I live at 4858 North Arvilla Drive. I'm directly to the east of the parcel. We don't get involved in the government activities too much, but it just is interesting that the Lucas County zoning had three reasons that on the issue that you're going to take up next on Nantucket. Three reasons to disallow that, and one was the densities are incompatible with the surrounding areas, and that the R3 permits a wider range of uses that are not compatible with the surrounding areas, and that the R3 is not consistent with the Savannah Township land use plan. Yet those very same things seem not to apply in this instance. I think what we're concerned is the density. In that very same area, which is approximately the size of most of our single-family homes, there's the potential, and I presume any developer would maximize the number of units that they would possibly be allowed. 3 bedrooms, 3 to 4 residents per unit is going to be, at least 36 people residing in the space that a single-family home in the adjacent areas are. I think the density is what concerns a lot of us, especially myself, and the conditional uses as well on an R3. Zoning, while it's not permanent, it rightly should take an awful strong view to change it. Takes a long time, and I don't think zoning ever goes backwards. So we think the R3 is pretty strong with a less dense proposal. Perhaps would be interested in an R2 with a conditional or perhaps a non-conforming use to something that would be suitable. So, thank you very much.
Is there anybody else?
Hi, Denise Hunston, 4838 North Arvilla, so we're around the corner from it. I just want to say, we got a one-day notice about this. One of our neighbors came, talked to us, so a lot of people are not here, but I do want to say that the majority of our neighborhood is not happy. A majority. They couldn't be here today, so really I'm speaking for them, but I guess my question is to you and to Mr. Abid, if you had a nice living area that had a view, and now you're looking at an apartment building, how happy would you be? Okay, so for all the people that do live right by there, you know, the view for them that they moved into and bought that parcel for is not going to happen anymore. So again, the majority that we spoke to and cannot be here today, I just want to say we're not happy and we don't want an apartment building. Thank you.
Is there anybody else? Okay. You wanted to make some additional comments?
I could see there's a lot of tension in here and a lot of people against the project. I don't know about a lot of people are not happy about this project. As a matter of fact, the lady I bought the lot from, she lives just to the east of that property, and they welcomed a project like this. And they told me that if the neighbors knew that what you're doing, they were going to be happy, because, you know, it's better than a commercial strip mall or parking lot or, you know, a limousine service or something else. However, just to answer a few questions of the neighbors' concern. First of all, it's not going to have a high-riser apartment building. The most apartment building I can build here is 8. If I want to build an apartment building, and 12 if I want to build a condo unit with an attached garage, period. There's no risings. Second, whether I rent in, I think, you know, I have made my homework, and the rent roll for the 2-bedroom apartments is somewhere between $1,300 and $1,800 a month, and they're with 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. So I don't think I'm going to have, as a matter of fact, $1,300 to $1,900. So $1,500 or $1,400 for a 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 2 bathrooms is not that much to ask for in that area. And if I could not rent them, it's my business. In Section 8, I'm not going to be able to afford $1,500 or $1,800 rent. And I'm not going to be able to kind of put Section 8 in there. They cannot supplement my income. Also, if I want to, I might decide to sell them separately, but that will take more work, and I have to kind of establish an association and put an association together, and more expense and so forth and so forth. So basically, whether they're rented, I'm managing, or if I sell them, somebody else will be there. It'll be the same situation. And some people said that if I dig, it might affect the integrity of the septic tanks in their backyards. No digging for this. The sewer will be coming from the other side, the north side of Alexis Road, and if I want to get it to my lot, I have to bore under the street to get the sewer. No digging for septic or for the sewer going to be around or close to the neighbors. Okay? And also, I did last time we met in Lucas County, the people from the Lucas County Commission, they said this is good for me to kind of meet with the neighbors, and a few neighbors were there, and I was so happy to meet with them. I gave them my card, I told them, hey, you guys know each other, if you want to meet together and invite me, I would love to come and talk to you. Not that I did not, contact and try to kind of, I want to be nice to my neighbors. My neighbors are number one priorities, and, I will be more than happy to kind of meet with them anytime. I told them, book when I'm meeting together, and invite me and I'll come and talk to you. And Mr. Doyle here said if you cannot find a place to meet, you could meet here. Is that true?
Yes.
Or somewhere close, It's not that I did not try to kind of meet with my neighbors. I do not know all the people who are involved, but they know each other. They could get a meeting together and invite me and I could talk to them. Miss Condon called me and she asked me all kind of questions and I answered her and I gave her all the information and she said I was cooperative. However, plans at this time, not feasible for me to go get hire an architect and tell him what I want and draw plans. It's going to cost me somewhere between $15,000 to $25,000, and I cannot pitch this kind of money while this zoning change is not even in order yet. It will be immature for me to go dump money, and what if the zoning did not go through? What if the other stuff did not go through? I'll be out of $20,000 out like this. And it's not a good business decision. I will be more than happy to give you a copy of the plans once I get the zoning approved and the building permit, approved and everything. On the other hand, I am not really struggling or I'm not really pushing to kind of put anything in there. I thought this one lot was a multi-unit, and if I want to put something in there, I have to get the other lot, and the other lot was not a multi-unit. I thought if I make it a multi-unit together, I could put a bigger unit in there. And, to put like 2 or 3 units in one small lot, it's not as feasible as putting 12 units. However, if you like that lot so much, and you like the view of the weeds that are growing up there, there are no trees anymore, I'll be more than happy to sell it to you for the exact amount I bought it for, and you could divide it and add it to your backyards. This way, no one could come in and put anything in there. If this is the case. Here you go. I paid, you know exactly how much I paid. It's all public record. Why don't you go get together and bitch in for that and give me what I paid for, and I'll be more than happy to move on. I'm not, that's all that I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Here with us a couple questions.
Okay, I have a couple comments as well.
Okay. You want to make your comments first, and I'll ask my questions. See if we can cover it.
First of all, I want to clarify something here. Multifamily does not necessarily mean rental. It could be condos, owner-occupied or rental. It's just simply multifamily. It's no more indicative of rental than single-family is indicative of a rental or owner-occupied. The issue of high-rise, Sylvania Township has a 45-foot height limit on all buildings. So, we're talking 4 stories would be about the highest any building could be in the township. So, there would be no high-rise. Somebody had mentioned as far as the density and this being similar to our next case. It's for the most part an RA versus A4 zoning. The A4, which is what most of this what the Nantucket one is, has a minimum of 15,000 square feet for a lot, whereas the RA, which this case, for the most part, the residential round is RA, has a minimum of 12,000 square feet for a lot. So while the specific lots may be about the same size, the zoning density in each of these cases of the surrounding residential is a little bit different, and this area is somewhat more dense than the Nantucket case.
Okay. My question, you can have a seat, or if we need you, we'll come back to you. You don't have to keep standing. Just to reiterate, the property that's next door is already zoned R3.
Correct.
And anybody could go into that property at any time they wanted and put up some kind of a multifamily unit.
Right, or duplexes.
Or a duplex or something. So it's already, this is just an extension of the zoning for taking the zonings on one property and applying it then to the adjacent one. Okay. The notice that was given to people, I mean, how did we notify people? Hasn't there been a sign posted on the property?
There's a sign on the property. We sent notices out to property owners within 200 feet of the subject property. I believe that went out March 31st.
Okay. And when did the Lucas County Plan Commission have their hearing? What date?
23rd of March.
Yeah, that was
23rd
on
March.
the 23rd. We send our notices out at least 10 days before our meeting date.
But the sign has been posted on the property.
Oh, yeah, since mid-March sometime, probably the week of the 14th.
But if you don't drive down Alexis Road, you'll never see it.
Right.
Okay.
Are there any other questions people have for Darrell?
I have one. Septic tank for 12 units. How big is that thing going to be, and where are you going to put it?
I don't think he's going to extend the sewer.
He couldn't have septic for
He has to extend the
for an
sewer.
R3, and R3 has to have
Sewer?
public water and sanitary.
So they're going to have to do that. so.
Come across the street with the sewer.
Right.
Do you own both lots then?
Yes, I do.
What would I mean, just to clarify so everybody's clear about this, we approve, disapprove this, say it's approved. What is the planning process going forward?
Well, then it'll go before the trustees on May 3rd. That's a 5 PM meeting. They would make the final decision on the zone change. And let's say it's approved, then once Mr. Abid submitted a plan, it would go through project plan review, where everything would be submitted through the zoning office, and then we would send it out to the Lucas County engineer, Lucas County sanitary engineer, Lucas County Plan Commission, Sylvania Township Fire, whoever holds the water there. I don't know if it's City of Toledo or City of Sylvania, but whichever one has the water. And then, of course, ourselves, and we would all review the plans and then send our comments back to Mr. Abid or his engineer or architect.
When you're going through the planning process, to what extent, I mean, I know it's more prescriptive with a PUD. I mean, to what extent do you address things like, fencing or things like that to the surrounding properties, landscaping, anything like that?
Well, there would be no fencing requirement for residential next to other residential.
Okay.
The fencing requirements are only for commercial or industrial.
So for those properties, they're also complaining about the greenhouse and frames or pest control. Is there fencing around that if those are or if those are commercial?
I don't know how long they've been there, if they were in there before.
Been there forever.
I was going to say they're probably basically grandfathered in. Now if somebody were to come in and redevelop those sites, then they would need to put fencing up and the landscape strip.
So once something changes ownership, it doesn't trigger anything to, hey, what you're going to put there?
Not unless they're redeveloping the site. If they're just using the same building or buildings as is, then no. But if they're
One type of commercial to another type of commercial.
I'm sorry?
One type of commercial to another type of
Right,
commercial.
right.
Yeah. And farther down the street, we do have a variety of different commercial activities, right?
Yes.
There we go. Other questions or before we engage in discussion? Questions? What are your thoughts, gentlemen?
Well, I'll share a couple off the top of my head. The one that jumps out to me probably the most is that, as Darrell mentioned, this is very similar to the project we had on McCord and south of Sylvania there. And there were a lot of comments, many of the same comments that we've heard tonight, and we sure understand those. But a lot of them were the view. It's a great lot that our kids like to play baseball in, but the reality is it's not your lot, it's not your property. Change, we don't want to see that change. So there was a lot of negatives surrounding that project. It was approved, and I think anyone that drives down McCord now looks at those. One of the big questions was, hey, you're asking $1,200, $1,300, $1,400. How the heck are you going to get this out of these? They filled them up like that. So, I mean, the demand is out there, and I think that project, if it's similar in nature to that, which it sounds very, very similar to what we approved there, it's been a nice addition to the township. So.
Other comments?
I think that area was, a little different though, wasn't it?
Just a little
Dealing with
bigger.
like 5 to 7
Yeah,
acres.
certainly bigger, but.
I mean, that's what scares me, this density on this small of a parcel, and I think the neighbors included. I mean, could we just see a show of hands, who would be more comfortable with like 6 units? Just one?
I think we need more information. That's.
But Mr. B is also right to get, I wouldn't mind seeing a plan also before we vote on this thing, but that's not the rules. He doesn't have to have a plan for the change, am I correct? I mean,
Right.
it's a lot of money for an engineered print.
Everything east of that is residential. West is some commercial, greenhouse, used to be greenhouse.
Well, and as the county said, this would be considered a transitional use, where it's, he could have came in here and applied for commercial use. This would create a buffer between you guys with resident people living there as opposed to an Arby's or a Taco Bell or something if he went commercial. So I mean, those are the options that he could come in next month and say, well, let's go C2. And I think we'd be having the same arguments, but it could be a business with traffic all night in and out, where this is as the county says, a good transition. It's a residential buffer between you guys that are less dense and the commercial uses to the west.
Come up to the microphone, please. The reason we have you do that is everything is recorded, and you go into the microphone.
I think part of our cautiousness is the fact that many people in the neighborhood were never even given any notice. Our notice was sent to the people we have our mortgage with. If we didn't know them pretty well, I don't know when we would have got the letter. Some of the people here never got a letter. And that was true even for down at Lucas County. So that is a part of it. It's all being done so quickly. Couple questions. Are the condos on McCord rental?
Yes.
They are. Okay. Second question. When all these other committees meet and Mr. Abed brings his proposals, will the neighborhood be invited to hear what's going on, to be part of it? As a couple of us has mentioned, many of us have lived there for many years. This is a neighborhood. That's what we're concerned about.
You want to address the planning process?
No, the project plan review is not a public meeting.
It is closed to the public, or it is not a public meeting?
It's not a public meeting, it's closed to the public.
But you're dealing, let's be clear, what you're dealing with there are things like sewers
Right, it's
and
predominantly
fire.
engineering.
and It's engineering things that are happening at the
For the
planning.
most part.
Not the design of the project. That's happening sort of in,
Right, well, I mean, he would have to meet all the setbacks and things like that, but as far as architectural guidelines or something like that, no.
But when the plans are finally put together, assuming it is approved, when the plans are finally brought together, are we going to have any way of seeing what's there? And again, as far as this trash business there, I could tell you, somebody put a dirt bike track in there. It wasn't any of the neighbors.
thank you. I had other comments from people.
Our discussion.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
I think we need to get back to our discussion on park. We opened up cans.
The apartments at McCord in Sylvania, were the surrounding properties, I mean, that's much larger, correct? That was 5 to 7 acres, I believe you said, something like that?
That's my estimate, yeah.
It was substantially larger.
33 units.
Was there already sewer there, or did they have to dig for sewer?
They obviously, they had to tap in.
But they didn't have to extend a main line? Okay. I guess my concern is, I know you're not digging through our yards, but if you talk to any septic specialist, anything that is dug within a mile radius can affect your septic fields. So that small bit going underneath and coming towards there, that can affect septic fields within a whole mile. And the only reason that I know that, and obviously I'm not a professional, I can't speak to that, is because we looked at purchasing a home on Brent, on the corner of Brent where the traffic circle just went in. Before we purchased our home at this location, we looked at a home there that was for sale, and because the traffic circle hadn't gone in, we were heavily cautioned by the septic service that came into the inspection that when you dug to do the circle, there's a high possibility for septic problems. And they might not be major issues, it might not be like the whole thing, but shifting can definitely occur within 1 mile from digging of the septic.
My name is Mike Condon. I live at 4914 South Arvilla, directly behind the property. Some of my concerns is, once the zoning is changed, like it doesn't ever go back, okay? Behind us, in the one corner, is the greenhouse, which has been an aviary for several times. It's, in the summertime, it sounds like I'm in the Amazon jungle, full of birds. The cockatoos, whatever they are. My concern is if this fails or does not work, what could happen then? Which is, I think, a big concern. And he said it would cost a lot of money to make plans for this, to have the plans in. I was curious to know, did he check and see how much it is to run a sanitary sewer from where he has to his property? These are concerns. And then he says, well, that's too much money. I don't want it. You know, anything can happen up until now. Unless you know what your sewage is going to cost.
Yeah, good idea.
Good idea? Okay. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Sure.
How long was this property for sale before he bought it?
It's been for sale forever, it seems like. I don't know exactly how long.
Say the question again, please.
Before you purchased the property, how long was it for sale?
Okay, yeah. This property was for sale by owner. He had a for sale by owner sign in front on Alexis Road, and I really do not know how long it's been for sale. As a matter of fact, when I checked, I'm also a real estate agent. I work for Key Realty, and I checked on it, and it's been for sale more than 10 years before, for a long time, and did not sell in other markets. Somebody tried to buy it and didn't go through and so forth, but I don't know how long has it for sale since this guy has. And the guy who owned the property right there, you could see his house at the bottom left or bottom right corner right there. He has access to that lot. And those mountains that are on the property, his kids dug and brought up there because they do the 4x4 wheeling on that property, okay? You have any other questions?
Fine. Now, the reason I ask is a lot of times when these things come up, the property has been for sale for a long time. Anybody could have purchased it.
Right.
And I guess we miss that a lot. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other comments from people or questions?
So, he's not the same applicant for the limousine business then, correct?
No, I'm not.
No, you're not.
I am not also the guy who owned the house and tore it down. Okay, I just bought those properties just like less than 2 months ago, or just before I got in the request to change zoning, okay? And then the other guy who owned the property next door to me, I bought him at the same time, in the same town, okay? I went and approached him, and he lives in that backyard also, in the same neighborhood, down the road a little bit, but like 4 or 5 properties down, and he thought it was a great idea and a great use for that land in there. He told me if you could do something with it, yeah, go for it, and it wasn't for sale, the lot next to it, it wasn't for sale, but I went and approached him, and he said, yeah, he'll sell it. He couldn't do anything with it.
Other comments or questions? I was actually here when they tried to zone it for the limo service. Were you here? I remember.
Right after me.
I do remember the hearing for the limo service. I mean, the one thing that, to me, is probably, there's 2 things that are sort of compelling to me. One is that, eventually something is going to happen to this property. We do have a lot of grandfathered commercial, as you go west. Certainly to have this is probably better than commercial for the neighbors. And the fact that part of this, a third, a half, however you want to measure it, is basically already zoned to allow this type of a project. So, I find that sort of compelling that the adjacent property is already zoned to allow this type of a project. And that something's going to happen here, and it's probably not going to be single-family houses. We've seen projects like this. From what we hear from developers and realtors, this is the kind of housing people are looking for right now. As evidenced by the project out on Central, which was also controversial, the project that's at McCord, which was also a little controversial. But, it is the kind of thing people are looking for. But the fact that the adjacent property already allows this kind of a project is sort of compelling to me. And in 10 years, nobody's come up with anything better to do with the land.
When was the property zoned R3?
The other one?
The other parcel?
Oh, the other one?
Was it before or after the land use plan was made?
Oh, it was before. Somebody had asked that after the Lucas County Plan Commission meeting. I looked it up. April 10th, 1980, 4901 Alexis.
When they redid the zoning land use plan, why did they change that when they did the new use plan?
Well, it doesn't call out specific parcels on the land use plan. It's kind of a general area. That is a good question.
Every once in a while, I'll ask one.
Yeah, if you look at this here, it's kind of, I believe right here would be, right on the border between the yellow and the red would be that, the one that's currently zoned R3. So like I said, they just they don't do this parcel specific, it's just sort of.
Which land use plan is this out of?
I'm sorry?
Which one is this out of, the most recent?
Yes, the 2007 land use plan.
And I know a lot of comments have been out of that land use plan, and a lot of the heavier traveled roads in the township, a lot of the talk has been this transitional use. And, would you rather have more heavy commercial right abutting into your residential, or would you rather, the fact is, yes, it's a business for him, but the reality is this is residential. There are residential projects going in there. There's people living there, and brand new projects are going to look a whole lot better. Brand new units, they're going to look a whole lot better than something that could go there. So as things change, which obviously change is inevitable, I think looking at the overall piece of the puzzle here, the land use and everything else, a transition would probably be more appropriate than what could happen there someday.
Well, and I think that if you go down Alexis, more to the west, there's multiple instances of apartment buildings abutting residential. There's not too much of a buffer between several of the units that are down there. I can think of 2 right offhand that cut right up to
This,
residential in their backyard.
this R3 is a step down from commercial, R3 and then standard residential.
John, before they recommended a PUD here for limousine, I don't know if you were here.
No,
or
they
not.
requested it, but it was withdrawn. So
Gotcha. But I think they
It never
came,
got to the zoning commission.
and nobody knows why they withdrew
No.
before. I'm just looking at this like for a R2 PUD, a little less dense. That's what bothers me, that density on this small parcel with some of the open. I mean, if he acquired the greenhouse property and we were dealing with, my guess would be 6 acres, 5 acres. But then you're also looking at probably 36 units, you know what I mean, or more. So, that's just my thoughts. There are other options that involve Darryl a little more on the buffering and planning going forward with less units. If Darryl has any comments on that, I mean,
Well, I guess
I think that would be the best of both worlds for the developer and the residents, including some landscaping or buffering and all that stuff. Because you would be involved with the PUD.
as would this board.
Sure.
But probably not R2, because that would only allow single-family or a conditional use from the Board of Zoning Appeals for two-family, whereas the R3 would permit single-family, two-family, or multifamily.
About how many units per acre on R3? 7?
As a PUD,
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
it'll make me do math now. Let's see. For an R3 PUD, the maximum number of dwelling units per acre is 7, and this was 1.2, so, yeah, 8, 9 units.
Talk about the difference of 3 units. And you said, Sal, there might be a variance, 12 would be the maximum.
Yeah, 12 is the maximum.
Yeah, 12 is the maximum, and it might be less once you start working with the engineers. Yeah.
So to that point, you're right, this is just a question, it's not, is three units gonna make the difference in what, some of the concerns or arguments might be versus the overall project?
But a question, if the project falls and he doesn't build units, all these conditional uses are on the table.
Yeah, that's where the PUD,
Well,
I
there's
think,
an
protects a
R3,
little bit.
okay, so there's an R3 right there that's already on the table.
Right.
So it just makes the zoning right there a little bit more consistent for whatever project could come.
But
But again, they have to go through all the same steps of the planning process.
Right, a conditional use would have to be approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals, and they would still have to go through project plan review as well.
Other questions? Do I have a motion?
Motion, call vote.
Need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion to approve from Mr. King and a second from Mr. Creaky. Any additional comments? Call the roll, please.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Brady,
No.
Mr. Sabo,
No.
Mr. Pat,
No.
Mrs. Himeline,
Yes. Motion fails. So now what is this next step, Darrell?
It will next be before the Board of Trustees on May 3rd. That's a Tuesday, and that would be at 5 p.m. in this room.
Okay. And the trustees then will make the final decision?
Yes.
This is just strictly a recommendation to them?
Right, right.
Okay. Having done that one, let's move on to the next one, which is a zone change request from A4 rural residential to R3 residential for the property located at 4020 Nantucket Drive. And I will let you go ahead with that.
The applicant is requesting a change in zoning for the southern half of the property located at 4020 Nantucket Drive from A4 rural residential to R3 residential. A lot split for the property has been submitted to Lucas County and is pending on the approval of this zone change request. The R3 zoning would allow single-family, two-family, and multifamily dwellings. Presently, there is no proposed development plan for this property. The Sylvania Township Land Use Plan advocates suburban residential uses for this part of the township. Suburban residential encompasses A4, RA, R1, and R2 zone districts, i.e. single-family dwellings of 2 to 5 units per acre. Again, we have the contradiction of a zone change request for a potential two-family or multifamily use in an area of the township identified by the land use plan for single-family uses, with that of a parcel fronting on a main thoroughfare, which is less attractive for a single-family dwelling and is less likely to be developed as such. Often in these inconsistencies, the requested change in zoning would bring about a transitional use between less intense, typically single-family uses, and more intense, often commercial uses. That is not the case with this request. While there are multiple family uses in the vicinity of the subject property, with the exception of one place of worship, the adjoining and immediate area is all single-family uses. Additionally, as just one small lot and not a strip of lots along Sylvania Avenue would be rezoned, this requested zone change may be considered spot zoning. While not illegal, spot zoning is not a desirable means of guiding land use within the township. It is entirely possible, if not probable, that the current strip of single-family residential properties along the north side of Sylvania Avenue may one day transform to multifamily or professional office uses. But that transformation should encompass multiple lots, adjoin existing similar uses, and be compatible with the surrounding area. For the above reasons, the Sylvania Township zoning staff recommends denial of the requested zone change from A4 to R3 for the property located at 4020 Nantucket Drive.
And that's consistent with what the Lucas County Plan Commission also recommended denial, right?
Correct.
Okay. Is there anybody who wishes to address this issue?
Brian Ellis, 7057 Barrett Road, Sylvania Township, with Glass City Engineering Surveying. I'm representing the client. He asked me to provide a lot split and potential zone change for the south portion of this lot. The applicant does live in the house that exists on the site. He's recently purchased it not too long ago. I don't know the exact time frame. But just looking at the parcel that he owns, being it's a kind of a unique shaped piece of land, he thought he'd try to do something different with the south end of it, not have to maintain it for himself, and something a little more fitting with down towards the east, match a similar style of a multi-family. The entrance to this, there is one driveway off of Nantucket that would be used in conjunction because there aren't any access allowed to Sylvania Avenue. I think there's a buffer restriction on access, so the existing drive would be maintained. But other than that, if there's any questions from Township, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Questions? Okay, thank you. Yep. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak to this issue? State your name and address, please.
Yes. Tom Sussman, 4911 Rowendale, which is in Minor Park. Looking at the Lucas County recommendation, the applicant has no has indicated there's no development plans for the site. Well, if there's nothing to do, why make a change? And referring to east of this property, there are some multifamily and it does get commercial, but to the west of it, it's single family and it always has been. And as far as turning that into something else down the road over my dead body, I'll be here for every meeting if they start changing the zoning west of this property. But I think what Lucas County said, I'd just be repeating their recommendation for denial.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to address? Go ahead, name and address.
Hi, Ryan LaPointe, 4038 Nantucket. I live directly behind this property, and one thing I was a little confused about, you said the applicant does not live in the house. He does live in the house, but not the property? I'm sorry? Okay, so the property was acquired approximately 6-8 months ago, somewhere in there. It was for sale for a little while. The land, it wasn't bought in two separate parcels, it was bought together. Exactly, it was one parcel. And my question would be, why at this point would he realize that it's too difficult to maintain or take care of? And there was no commercial value put on that property if you look at the comps and you look at the purchase price of the land. So it was never a surprise that you have to do that. I'm just indicating that. So there are not a lot of neighbors here. There were a lot of them at Lucas County Planning Commission, and we strongly urge Sylvania to abide by what Lucas County has already recommended in denial of this. Thanks.
Is there anybody else?
My name is Naji Abdullah. I live at 4758 West Sylvania Avenue. I'm property across the street on Nantucket, across the street from this property. I do wish the committee here to disapprove this request. For one thing, I think, I may be wrong, but I'm not sure if somebody thought of it, this is a subdivision, this is a residential subdivision as a whole subdivision. So I am sure the people that bought their properties in this residential subdivision bought it on the basis that this is where nothing there goes in there but residents and not multifamily properties. So I can't see why this property or the owner of this property would want to split a lot to make money off of it and turn it into what I would call commercial type things so that he can use it for other purposes. I happen to know the person that purchased this property. I don't know him in person, talk to him, but I know who he is. I don't think he knows what he did. I don't think it's prompted by him. He is in no condition to do anything with the property after he splits it. So his request is arbitrary, it has no meaning, and I just want to make sure that the committee think of it as being a subdivision and not allow even a request like this to go through, let alone be debated on, because I live there in a subdivision, single-family subdivision. I don't want no other multi-family subdivision, otherwise I wouldn't have bought my property. And I'm sure a lot of the residents in the subdivision refuse to allow something like this to happen, because if it goes through, which I know it will not, and I'm confident it will not, it will just set a precedent for other people to say, hey, if he got it, why can't I get it? Although my property is almost an acre as much as that property, and I can do the same thing across the street, but I wouldn't want to do that to my neighbors. So I therefore don't see why you went through it, and if he did, I do greatly appreciate, and I'm sure a lot of the residents of the subdivision appreciate you disapproving this request. Thank you.
Anybody else? Name and address.
4802 West Sylvania Avenue, David Cezak. I happen to live next door to Najee.
Could you repeat that in the microphone, please?
4802 West Sylvania Avenue, David Cezak. I happen to live next door to Najee. One, I've gotten no notifications about this. Luckily, my neighbor informed me. I had one for the Toledo, and that was it. Basically, everything's been brought up. I just purchased my house in October of 2011. There's an apartment there. I wouldn't have bought it. So if I decide to sell, there goes my value. So I got apartments or who knows what. There's enough congestion and whatnot in that area. We don't need no more. And to reiterate, it's part of Redgate Estates. You know, I don't want to see Section 8s moving into my neighborhood because that's why I have to move out here. Toledo. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, gentlemen, your comments.
I think this one's very different than the one that we just talked about.
Absolutely. I mean, to me, I think your point about spot zoning.
Yeah. I don't really see a lot of debate, to be real honest, based on the adjoining and immediate area and single-family uses. Yes, up and down there, and maybe more to the east, there's some multi, but those are already existing. This would be spot zoning, something right in the middle, and to the point there, that's the entrance to and part of the subdivision.
It is.
A single-family subdivision. This is I agree with the,
well said.
with the recommendation.
Anybody else? I will still need a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion to approve denial. Oh, wait.
You
Motion to approve, and then we yes or no.
Yes. Do I have a second for the motion?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Call the roll, please.
Mr. King?
No.
Mr. Cott?
No.
Mr. Sabo?
No.
I'm sorry.
No.
Mr. Brady?
No.
Mrs. Hickman?
No. Okay, motion is denied.
And this item will also be before the trustees on Tuesday, May 3rd at 5 p.m. in this room.
Is there anything else we need to cover for the good of the...
No, other than just our zoning commission training thing that we've been
There's somebody in
talking
the back.
about.
Somebody in the back wants to talk.
You got a question, or?
Just a quick question. Will the trustees still be able to approve something like this?
Yes.
If it's been recommended for denial by both?
Trustees can always,
Yes, these first two boards were a recommendation only. The trustees make the actual decision.
Okay, but I know it's an arbitrary question, but would they still go opposite of the recommendation?
Yes.
And is that meaning?
Yes.
I don't know, we should change that.
All right, so then we'll be input on that decision at that point, whether somebody has concern.
Yes.
Yes, no?
Just kind of back to the last case and this, people made a statement they weren't notified. I wasn't notified, luckily my neighbor notified me. Something be done, be correcting that. He said I was right next door to this guy, and I didn't know it was in his mail.
You have to be 200 feet from the property. If you're not 200 feet from the
Well,
property...
I got the first letter, that was Toledo. Well, that's probably several.
Okay, we'll just have them double check the mailing. I know that any mail that's going out in Sylvania these days, there is a horrendous problem because it all goes to Detroit, and the simplest thing could take 10 days. And that is a logistical problem I think anybody in town is facing. To go to the Sylvania post office and know that it's going up to Detroit, and it may actually, when it used to be you could drop something in the Sylvania post office and it'd be delivered like in 2 days, and now it's taken like 10. It's just ridiculous.
Is that something, Mary, that we could, if it is 200 feet, I mean, we've heard this before, not just at this meeting, but could this board change it to 400 feet or 500?
I don't know the answer to that.
For your information,
I feel like we're getting a lot of people that don't know what's going on. I mean, I know there's a sign on Alexis.
Certainly a theme tonight.
it's also posted in the newspaper.
Personal ones.
In the newspaper, they have to do that. And the only personal thing is 200 feet from the property. So it's posted. It's also posted outside the building? Right, it's posted in here, so you can come by anytime and see what's going to happen.
Put it in your newsletter?
We don't have a newsletter.
I mean, township website has information on it.
Yeah, the agenda's always there. The agenda's there, but.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I can double check if that 200 feet is an ORC requirement or just ours. I mean, I suppose either way, it's something that could be altered if we chose
Well, if
to.
anything, it's the adjacent property owners.
Right, adjacent property owners and anybody within 200 feet. Yeah, that's a good point.
Anything else, gentlemen? I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Did you have something else?
Well, just regarding our zoning commission training that we would have done tonight.
Yeah.
Mr. Burrell and I are looking at, we figure probably a Wednesday evening would be ideal, but, you know, I'd some feedback from the board as far as maybe whenever we want to do that, or we could put it on our.
Do we have anything on our agenda next month?
Yeah, well, there's a text amendment for our monument sign regulation.
Maybe we could do it then.
I don't imagine that would be too lengthy. So we could do it on, yeah, that would be May 11th, if that works for everyone.
Sounds good.
We're going to have a meeting anyway.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So we will see everybody next month, and I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
We have a motion.
Second.
Second, that. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Sable?
Yes.
Mr. Pratt?
Yes?
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Whitney?
Yes.
Yes. Have a nice evening, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. That was a fun one.
Hey, you haven't had much. Thank you.
It was interesting. I mean, they're just two very different.
Yeah, although, I mean, I can see where the public might view it as a very similar situation from a zoning standpoint.
Call us or email us.
They weren't even